When the American Civil War ended, the Union Army, which was now the United States Army, found itself in possession of almost 1 million percussion rifles of many types. They also had about, let's say 150,000 of the newer cartridge rifles in their possession. Battlefield usage of all of those implements had shown the world that the future was in cartridge weapons. The old muzzle loaders were just too slow. The breech loading muzzle black powder percussion weapons, which used paper cartridges, they were an improvement, but they were still not quite up to matching the self-contained cartridge as the thing of the future. Consequently, the Union Army made a decision to convert many of their breech-fed percussion rifles and carbines into cartridge weapons. An earlier video of mine shows a converted Sharps paper cartridge rifle that was converted to a 50-70 government cartridge in 1866. At the same time, the Union Army had paid for and made something like 200,000 model of 1863 muskets, musket rifles. They used a mini ball. They had a rifle bore. They were 58 caliber, but they were not the future. The U.S. Army had a choice. They could spend the money to make new cartridge rifles, or they could convert the rifles that they already had to use cartridges. An engineer at Springfield Armory named Allin was tasked with finding a way, and he did find a way. He invented what was called the Allin Trapdoor Conversion, and initially in 1865 a few thousand model of 1863 percussion rifles were converted to use a 56 caliber rimfire cartridge. The Army still wasn't satisfied. Rimfire was nice, but centerfire was, in their opinion, the way to go. They were correct. In 1866, Allin unveiled what we now call the 1866 percussion rifle. It is an 1863 musket which has had the rear end of the barrel cut off and a trapdoor installed to hold the cartridge. This is one of them. This is a U.S. Army issue, Springfield Armory made, model of 1866. It uses a trapdoor at the rear. It takes a 50-70 cartridge. These are available, by the way, from Buffalo Arms and blackpowder loading. Never ever fire a smokeless powder round in a blackpowder weapon. Some of them are made of steel, some of them are made of iron. Smokeless powder will turn the black powder weapon into a miniature grenade. It's just a question of when. So don't do that. Stick with black powder. This is a fired case from the Sharps. I'll use it here for illustration. You push the cartridge in, you close the case, you pull back the hammer, find your target, pull the trigger, open it one notch, and it ejects the shell very nicely. The musket, which was now a rifle in the purest sense of the word, no longer a musket, was also used with the bayonet, model of 1855. It's one of them. It's a triangular bayonet. It's about, let's say, 20-inch long blade. To install it on the rifle, you simply slid it over the barrel. There's a notch which lines up with the front sight. Then you twist it. Now you're good to go. The Army, in their wisdom, decided that they did not want to make carbines in 1866 using the Allin Conversion. The reason for that was simple. They had just made 30,000 or converted 30,000 Sharps paper cartridge rifles into full-size metal cartridge rifles using the same bullet as this. They also had something like 50,000 Spencer cartridge rifles, still in good condition, plenty of ammunition for them. So for the most part, the cavalry was issued the conversions, the Sharps conversions, or the Spencer rifles. There were also a few Remignton Rolling Blocks that were converted. Those weren't widely used. There was another 4 or 5 other types of weapons. The Army still had some early Henry repeating rifles, etc. And the Army's position is, before we make a new rifle, we're going to use up the stock we have. And I should go and show you this in a test firing, but before I do, I want to point out something unusual about this rifle. This was an infantry rifle. When I first got it, the wood was black in color. Apparently somebody had coated it with tar. The barrel was rusty. The correct color of the metal of the 1866 is what was called Springfield Bright, which was polished steel. So solving the rust problem wasn't that big of a problem. I managed to get all of the tar off the stock, so it's no longer sticky and black. And in the process of cleaning the rest of the rust off the rifle, especially at the butt plate, I found something unusual. If you can see it, that's a unit mark. I'll give you a close-up of it. That's the unit mark of the 41st Infantry Regiment. The 41st Infantry Regiment was one of 6 similar regiments formed by an act of Congress in 1866. They comprised entirely of freed slaves. The proper name of it was the 41st Colored Infantry Regiment. Their assigned mission by Congress was to fight Indians on the western frontier. This was true of all of the colored regiments, to fight Indians on the frontier and also to help with the 41st, and later I believe it was the 38th Infantry Regiment in 1870 were merged to form the 24th Infantry Regiment. The cavalry regiments, they became the 6th and the 10th regiments. They went down in history as Buffalo Soldiers. The infantry regiments were later also considered Buffalo Soldiers. The 24th Regiment, after 1870, fought on the west, manned the many posts at western forts. Also helped create the first U.S. National Park. And the 41st Infantry Regiment during the war with Spain. Went under the command of Jack Pershing. It was actually the 41st Infantry Regiment, or its descendant, the 24th Infantry Regiment, that took San Juan Hill. After the war with Spain, many of the colored infantry regiments were sent on to pacification in the Philippines. I don't know at what time this rifle left the inventory of the unit. However, I know, being a model of 1866, it was definitely in service with the 41st when they converted over to become the 24th in 1870. The Buffalo soldiers that fought on the West, 23 of them received Medals of Honor. This rifle was, and still has the date, 1863. This rifle was an actual Civil War rifle, later converted and used in the Indian Wars. This rifle is probably about as historic a rifle as I'm likely to have. I think it's time for us to go shoot it.